demonstrate a dramatic progress of our defense relationship, holding the first ever tri-service military exercise between our nations. It's called Tiger Triumph. Good name. It's a good name. Very good name. Today we honor all of the brave American and Indian military service members who work together to safeguard our freedom. We stand proudly in defense of liberty, and we are committed to protecting innocent civilians from the threat of radical Islamic terrorism.
This is Jack Maxey in the War Room on Capitol Hill. Today is August 15th, year of our Lord 2020. We are super pleased to be celebrating on this day the 74th independence of the great democracy and state of India. We are going to be thanking some of our broadcast partners here in the United States. We have America's Voice News, John Frederick's radio station. We've got 109.3 in Chicago, and we are blown through the firewall into Communist Chinese by G News in the afternoon. But what we are most excited today is that we are going to be broadcast into India on WION News. What a great day this is. And we're glad to have Colonel Sellin back with us. We've got a few more questions for him. Colonel, I have one right out of the box that I'd like to ask you concerning the deal with the base in Djibouti. We have a very large American Marine Corps base that is just basically across the harbor, I think, from the Chinese base. And then we've got Diego Garcia. Now, we've put a forward base of Marines in Darwin in Australia. Do you see some future where we might put some U.S. Personnel in India?
Well, I think that's entirely up to India to decide whether there should be U.S. troops on the Indian subcontinent. I certainly think that a partnership has to be developed between the United States and India, not just more, economic cooperation, trade, but more detailed military cooperation, and especially ones that include the other democracies in the region, which was brought up earlier, the Quad nations. I think that's absolutely necessary because the situation has really changed. You bring up Diego Garcia, but China's plan to connect the Djibouti base, which you mentioned, with the South China Sea bases that they're developing, depends very much on that new Chinese military base on the coast of Pakistan. And what that does, it outflanks Diego Garcia and it boxes in U.S. bases inside the Persian Gulf. So I think we have to adjust to what China is planning in the Indo-Pacific region.
Makes good sense. You have a question, Dave?
Colonel Dave Ramaswamy here. The question I want to ask for you is, Gwadar in Pakistan is located in the province of Balochistan. And Balochistan, for our listeners around the world, was an independent country before the state of Pakistan was founded in 1947. It declared its independence from the British Empire before that. But in March 1948, the Pakistani army went in and took over Balochistan. So it's a strategic region. It has a lot of rare earths, minerals, besides its location on the Gulf of Oman, providing a stone's throw access to the Persian Gulf. There's been a Baloch insurgency, which has kind of been suppressed by the Pakistani army. So in your opinion, going forward, what should America's position be about Balochistan?
Well, I've talked and written quite a lot about the potential benefits of an independent Balochistan. As you said, it was independent and was actually forced to join Pakistan under military threats by Pakistan, and since then there's been a festering insurgency. Now, with an independent Balochistan, and this is one of the sensitivities that Pakistan has, which we should exploit, which is ethnic separatism. But with an independent Balochistan, what you do is really virtually stop Chinese movement into South Asia, because Baluchistan is very important for the China-Pakistan economic corridor, and that would also eliminate the possibility of any Chinese military bases on the Baluchistan coast, the Pakistan coast on the Arabian Sea. But it would also be a potential solution for Afghanistan, because it would give not only Afghanistan a friendly neighbor, but also a friendly access to the sea, because Afghanistan is a landlocked country. And the final point I want to make about an independent Baluchistan is that it is traditionally secular and tolerant. So if you have an independent, secular, and tolerant Baluchistan, it drives a stake into the heart of radical Islam, which is growing in Pakistan.
Colonel Sellin, I wanted to ask you about the Vice President Biden. We played a clip earlier about him being given Pakistan's highest civilian honor, the Hilal-e-Pakistan, or the Crescent of Pakistan. And he was given that award because of his bill, the Biden-Lugar Pakistan Development Assistance Act of 2008, which was enacted into law shortly after he became vice president by Senator John Kerry. He took over that. So how did that money that was supposed to develop Pakistan's economy actually get used? And what are your thoughts on why Vice President Biden would probably do something like that again?
Well, I think a lot of the money that the United States has given to Pakistan has gone into the military, and undoubtedly some of it has been funneled to groups like the Taliban or the Haqqani network, because Pakistan is directly supporting them. In addition, Pakistan has been supporting the terrorist groups that attack India, Lashkar-e-Taiba or Jaish-e-Mohammed, have been launching attacks across into Kashmir. So I think a lot of the money, or at least some of the money, maybe that's going to Pakistan, is funneled to these various extremist groups. So again, I don't think Pakistan has ever been a friend of the United States, even though we've given them money and tried to support them. They've always been a firm ally of China. And this goes back all the way back to the Soviet time in Afghanistan, when the Central Intelligence Agency outsourced the funding and arming of the Mujahideen to Pakistan Intelligence Agency. And Pakistan's intelligence agency didn't give any of the money or the arms to Afghan nationalist groups. They gave it to pro-Pakistani Islamist groups fighting the Soviets, and then eventually, that type of arrangement led into groups like the Taliban. So I wouldn't give Pakistan any money or trust them in any way.
Colonel Sellin, this is Jack Maxey. Listen, we cannot thank you enough for your insight. This has been really groundbreaking. I wish we could get you on the regular show sometime during the week so you can go into this in some more depth with our American viewers. But thank you so much, and this is very important information that you're giving out, and especially important on such a great day as this, the 74th celebration of Indian independence. So thank you very much, Colonel Sellin.
Thank you, Colonel.
Thank you, Colonel.
Thank you.
And now, gentlemen, do we have our next guest ready?
Well, we won't. I don't think we have our next guest for another few blocks. I think. Well, I would just like. I think it's just us for now. But I would just like to sort of discuss what the Colonel was talking about. I mean, a lot of my friends here, in America. I'm born and raised here in America, right? The discussions about India and Pakistan are particularly lacking. We don't really talk about that, right? A lot of people just take that region of the world, I think, kind of for granted. India's always there. Oh, I have plenty of Indian friends. They go back home every summer, every other summer, so everything should be fine. And I'm sure plenty American friends here have Pakistani friends too. Same thing. They go back, but they don't. A lot of folks don't really understand the intricacies of this Indo-Pacific sort of, struggle and geopolitical ramifications that are going on. And then to add to that, how the U.S. has been involved funding Pakistan, and actually how the U.S. hasn't really had sort of an established relationship with India until very recently. So I'm glad that the Colonel can come on and discuss that. But Jay, Dave, what are your guys' thoughts?
I thought everything he said was absolutely crystal clear, and we need somebody like Colonel Sellin in the administration, and he needs to be serving the United States continuously, providing that analysis, because I think he could really get us out of endless wars and also prevent future conflicts. One thing that I wanted to allude to is that Pakistan has a very wide network of lobbyists here in Washington, D.C. that they use regularly, and also around the country. They have this nexus of Islamist supporters throughout the country that are always trying to denigrate India, make it look like the aggressor, but it's not. In fact, I want our listeners to know that 6 American cities have recently, in recent months, passed resolutions condemning India on internal matters. And those cities include Seattle, Albany, New York, St. Paul, Minneapolis, Hamtramck, Michigan, which is a suburb of Detroit, Cambridge, Massachusetts, and just recently in the last 2 weeks, San Francisco. Cities that have crumbling infrastructure, that are right now dealing with riots, they can't even keep their own streets clean, are trying to condemn India on internal matters, on passing a bill that would actually give refuge to religious minorities in Pakistan, Bangladesh, and Afghanistan that are suffering from Islamic persecution on a daily basis. So this network of influence also pervades American society.
Well, and also I think it's very important for people to understand this alliance between the Communist Chinese and the Pakistanis. They are very tightly aligned, and India is in the middle, right? We have the Chinese attacking on one side, we have the Pakistani threat on the other, and the two of them are trying to clasp hands across the middle. And sitting there in the middle between these two powers is this world's greatest democracy, India. So you people are in an important place. You always have been, but now it's becoming highlighted just how important India is to the safety of the world. And I think it's very important for our listeners to understand the geostrategic position that India is in and why it's so important for us to be partners. And the reason we're able to become partners is because we're both free countries. We both believe in personal liberty. And more importantly, we both have this great population of what we in America call the deplorables, the average guy who loves his country, loves his nation, just like what you're celebrating today. And I just want to say that being on the show has really been a great privilege for me, and it's not over yet. Vish?
Well, actually, Dave, do you have any quick thoughts before we go to break here? I think we got like 30 seconds.
My quick takeaway from the Colonel Sellin's comments is, in America and India, IT stands for information technology. In Pakistan, it stands for international terrorism. And allying with Pakistan to fight terror is like allying with arsonists to fight fires. It's never going to work.
Well said by our man Dave Ramaswamy. Jack Maxey with the whole crew here on Capitol Hill celebrating Indian Independence Day. We're going to be back in just a few minutes.
War Room with Stephen K. Bannon. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
This is Jack Maxey sitting here in the...
I've spent a lot of time. Apparently, I was told by the folks of state I've spent more time in private meetings with Xi Jinping than any world leader. I have 25 hours of private dinners with him, just he and I, and one interpreter.
Now, listen, guys, the reason we played that clip is because we're trying to highlight the problem that the people of India are going to have if Joe Biden becomes president. Now, we just heard him say that he's the only person on planet Earth who has had 25 hours of private meetings with Chairman Z, and we've just gone through the process of explaining the relationship between Pakistan and the Chinese Communist Party. Just prior to that, we saw potential President Joe Biden getting the highest award available to a civilian by the Pakistani government. So as an Indian and as an American patriot, we all have to ask ourselves the question, will Joe Biden be a reliable partner for the Quad nations, these nations aligned with liberty? Personally, I do not think so. We're very pleased to have as our next guest Senge, and he's going to talk a little bit about that. And what are your thoughts on that? Do you think that Joe Biden would be a good partner with India based upon his track record?
Thank you, Jack, for having me on the show. First of all, I would like to say Happy Independence Day, India. Happy birthday to a great nation, a great friend of the United States, a close ally, and a member of the Quad. Joe Biden is very close to the Islamists in this country. In the last few months that we observed that Democratic Party played a very active role in supporting the protest that happened against India in front of the Indian Embassy in the United States, as well as the Islamists all over the world were getting support from the Democratic Party and other affiliated members. ISNA, Muslim Brotherhood are known to be very close to Hillary Clinton. They have been providing funds to Hillary Clinton and Clinton Foundation. I believe that if Joe Biden becomes president, it will be a good news for Pakistan. He will try to restore relationship with Pakistan, and it will indirectly benefit China, because now China controls Pakistan's foreign policy. China controls Pakistan's military. If we allow China to continue the way it is continuing in improving its relationship with Pakistan, then very soon we will see Pakistan turning into another Nepal. It will be a country run by dictators, supported by China. As of now, as we're speaking, Pakistani military controls literally every civilian and democratic institution in Pakistan. It's a Pakistani military general or a brigadier who runs the show. And that's what benefits China. So restoring relationship with Pakistan at the cost of our relationship with India is something that I fear might be happening if Joe Biden becomes the president. And I think it will not be good for Quad, because India would not want us to play double game. We are looking for a very strong and reliable long-term relationship with India. And it is in our interest, in the interest of the United States. If we look at how we are losing our influence there, then we need India to be on our side, not Pakistan. So I think Joe Biden and his running mate, Kamala Harris, are going to be a bad news as far as India and the United States relationship is concerned.
So Senge, we apologize we didn't introduce you. You are the president and founder of the Institute for Gilgit-Baltistan Studies. Can we get that map up of where Gilgit-Baltistan is in the world? And Senge, why don't you just take it away as to why Gilgit-Baltistan is critical for American success to establish peace in Afghanistan, and also to ensure peace in the Indian subcontinent?
Well, I want to start with India-Iran relationship. You know, India and Iran had a very abusive relationship for a long time. It was not doing much for India, but India had to stay with Iran and play it professionally, because India was dependent on Iran to access Afghanistan, to go to Central Asia, and for oil and gas resources. And we also acknowledge that it is one of the stumbling blocks in Indo-US relationship. We do not want India to be very close to Iran. And if we want Iran to move away from Iran, then we have to provide an alternative, and that is Gilgit-Baltistan. If you look at the map, Gilgit-Baltistan is directly, physically linked with Afghanistan and Tajikistan, and it will allow India to access the gas from Turkmenistan and oil from Kazakhstan and almost 80,000 megawatts of clean hydroelectricity from Tajikistan. And it will give access to Afghanistan and Central Asia that India is so badly dependent on Iran for. So I think if we want our Quad to succeed, then we do want India and U.S. relationship to be very smooth. And Iran definitely plays that big challenge in promoting that relationship without much obstacles. So I think the United States need to realize, sometimes I feel like, when it comes to India-U.S. relationship, we play the role of a Pakistani mullah. Pakistani mullahs will tell you everything that is forbidden as far as your actions and your desires are concerned in religion, but would not give an alternative. Gilgit-Baltistan is that alternative that we need to provide to India and support India in regaining control over Gilgit-Baltistan, because if India has control over Gilgit-Baltistan, that also means that we will be able to use India's ports and access through Gilgit-Baltistan, have a physical link with Afghanistan and Central Asia. So we'll be able to, we do not want to waste all that billions of dollars that we have invested in Afghanistan and walk away. Even though we are reducing our presence in Afghanistan, but that does not mean that we have to let China enjoy all that, that we have invested there. So having a relationship with India, having India's ports in our access, and Gilgit-Baltistan within India's constitutional framework will benefit us, extend our influence in Central Asia and compete with China for the turf there as well. And at the same time, try to salvage what we have left in Afghanistan.
So Gilgit-Baltistan is occupied illegally by Pakistan and is a part of India's state of Jammu and Kashmir, correct?
Yes, so in 1947, according to British constitutional arrangement that enabled the 560 or so princely states to either choose India and Pakistan, the state of Jammu and Kashmir chose India. It gave the letter of accession to India, and it was approved by the British. And Pakistan attacked Jammu and Kashmir on October the 22nd and occupied Gilgit-Baltistan and some other districts in the south of Jammu and Kashmir. So Gilgit-Baltistan is a legal part of India. It's a constitutional part of India, and India has been giving this, hint to the United States that it need to help India regain control over Gilgit-Baltistan, because it is very important for the promotion of democracy, for the promotion of open borders, for a thriving economic and commercial atmosphere to counter China's growing despotic rule in South Asia and the Middle East. We need to help India regain control over Gilgit-Baltistan that lawfully belongs to India.
Can you put up the pictures of Gilgit-Baltistan, some of the Chinese incursion that's going on there? Dave, I think you had a question.
Senge, the question is, building on what Colonel Sellin said earlier about the China-Pakistan economic corridor, for me, which is the China-Pakistan military corridor, and I believe, looking at your maps, it actually passes through Gilgit-Baltistan. So what are your views? And since Gilgit-Baltistan by law and the articles of accession signed before India's independence legally belongs to India, and so the encroaching upon Gilgit-Baltistan first by Pakistan and then by China. So what are the legal and security ramifications of that?
Well, Dave, if you look at the United Nations Security Council Resolution 47 48 that was passed in 1940, Resolution 47 passed in 1948. It says that Pakistan is an aggressor. It has to withdraw. It gave Pakistan 90 days to withdraw from Gilgit-Baltistan. It allowed India to keep its forces there to help the United Nations and protect the life, honor, and assets of the local people. So even the United Nations Security Council recognized India as a legitimate sovereign authority in Gilgit-Baltistan. Unfortunately, Pakistan refused to withdraw, and United Nations spent another 10 years trying to convince Pakistan, and when it didn't happen, then it kind of like went into the cold storage. So, I mean, the ramifications of, as I said, Gilgit-Baltistan provides the only land link between Pakistan and China. And Pakistan being a nuclear power supported by China, now trying to connect with Iran, it's a really bad deal for South Asia, for Central Asia, for the Middle East in the coming years. And Gilgit-Baltistan, Peter Hopkirk in his book, The Great Game, said, Gilgit-Baltistan is the cockpit of Asia. Whoever sits in there controls the whole of Asia. So I think that is true even today. I mean, China controlling Gilgit-Baltistan, which is south of the Himalayas and the Karakoram, it gives them open access to the Indian Ocean, to the Persian Gulf, to the Arabian Sea, and it allows China to extend its tentacles into the Muslim countries and try to compete with the United States.
Okay.
So right now it may look like it has only access to Iran, but very soon I think it will try to extend its tentacles to Syria.
Okay, we're going to have to go to a
countries.
hard break here. Great information. Back in a second.
War Room with Stephen K. Bannon. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
In America and in India, we know that we are all born for a higher purpose, to reach toward our fullest potential, to work toward excellence and perfection, and to give all glory to God. Powered by this spirit, Indians and Americans are always striving to be greater. Our people are always seeking to be better. And so our nations have become thriving centers of culture and commerce and civilization, giving light and vitality to all of the world.
This is Jack Maxey. We're back in the War Room. The reason why we are playing that piece is we want to illustrate one of the things that makes India so special, makes the United States so special. We're both moral countries. We're both a people who base our inner core, our spiritual selves. One of the things that's so dangerous as we talk about this world and we talk about the danger of the Communist Chinese Party is look at how they control their population. First, they kill God. Then they destroy history. Then they destroy your family relationships. And what is the individual left with? And this is one of the reasons why it's so important for India to pay attention to the danger of the Chinese Communist Party, because this amazing spiritual nation, the largest democracy in history, the objective of the Chinese is to destroy all of that. So,
and you know that's interesting. You know, you mentioned God, you mentioned family, you mentioned history, and all these. You know, India is very, very blessed to be very, very rich in all of these things, and that's what we stand to lose if we allow the Chinese Communist Party to win. I mean, and that may be an enemy that's foreign to India, but there have been some dust-ups internally as well, and that sort of came to a head when we talk about civilizational struggles at the Ram Mandir in, is it Ayodhya, right? So maybe Dave, you could fill our audience in on that. What's going on there?
Thanks, Vish. Thanks, Jack. India is a holy land, like Israel.
And I agree.
It's the home of 4 major religions in the world: Hinduism, Buddhism, Sikhism, and Jainism, which I call the Indic religions, as opposed to the Abrahamic religions.
And India is also the only civilization on earth that has no history of anti-Semitism. So there's an ancient Jewish community that dates back over 2,000 years. And India also served as a place of refuge for the Zoroastrians or the Parsis after they were exiled from their homeland of Persia, or what is today Iran.
So to continue, thanks, Jay. So the Dharma-based civilizations, which are aligned with nature and natural law, to them, Ayodhya is like Jerusalem. And so Ayodhya is a sacred geography in a holy land. And Ayodhya is considered the birthplace of the god king Ram. Okay? And this god king Ram is a symbol of light and spirituality for all of Asia, because he belongs to a solar dynasty which which the Lord Buddha belongs to, with the other Jain spiritual leaders belong to. So this place of Ayodhya, the sacred geography, was a beacon of light and hope for all the dharmic religions. Unfortunately, and there was a huge temple to Lord Ram here for thousands of years. But unfortunately, 500 years ago, radical Islamic invaders entered northern India and destroyed this temple and built a mosque over it. And India at that time was ruled. And I would give the analogy of the ISIS terrorist group destroying Christian churches and destroying Roman temples in Palmyra a few years ago. So that's the analogy. And the Taliban blowing up the statues of the Buddha in Afghanistan. So it's these iconoclasts, these radicals who don't tolerate a pluralistic, diverse spiritual framework. So it took a while, but it finally happened that the Indian Supreme Court ruled that yes, there existed a Ram temple beneath the mosque. There was archaeological evidence, historical evidence, and they handed the lands where this mosque lay back to the Hindus to build their temple. And not just Hindus, the Indic people. But because India is a pluralistic country, the mosque space was relocated to the same town, but far away. So the sentiments of India's Muslims was also respected. What I want to highlight is Ayodhya exists not just in India. There's Ayodhya in Thailand.
Can we pull up that map of Southeast Asia?
Yeah, sure.
There's Ayodhya in Indonesia. It's called Yogyakarta. So this whole concept, it's not a concept just physically, it's a concept of spiritually. And the story of Lord Ram, the God King Ram, who represents sacrifice, compassion, and valor.
And good governance.
And good governance has been celebrated for thousands of years. And if I could use a phrase, his life was totally epic. And it's been documented in the Ramayana.
Which is one of the world's largest epics.
And so the Ramayana is the national epic, if you will, in many countries. In Cambodia, in Indonesia. So the world's largest Muslim country, Indonesia, celebrates Lord Ram and the Ramayana as its national story. And this civilizational foundation has played a role for open seas, open trade, open commerce in this Southern Asia, Greater India, Southeast Asia for thousands of years. So what we now call the Indo-Pacific was historically what I call the Rambo, the Ramayana Belt and Ocean Way. It promoted traders, travelers, spiritual seekers to spread goodwill and harmony among the region. And now this reconsecrating of this temple. So it's a sacred space in a sacred geography in a holy land. So India is proud that America supports it, and going forward, not just the Quad countries, all the countries which are democratic, which belong to the Alliance of Liberty, can uphold these values for the benefit and security of the world.
And I've been to several of these temples that Dave is talking about in Cambodia, in Indonesia, in Malaysia, and it's very palpable the reverence that the local people feel, even if they may not be Hindu per se, but you see women in hijabs walking all around the Prambanan temple, which is one of the largest Vishnu temples in the world, and they have a ballet that's performed by the local people who are mostly Muslim, if not all Muslim, about the Ramayana. And it's such a syncretic culture. It was so great to see this, that Indonesia is also a part of the Alliance of Liberty. And it's also a key player in the Indo-Pacific region strategy of the United States. So America cannot expect to execute an effective Indo-Pacific strategy without understanding these sacred geographies and also ensuring that India has a way to exert this influence.
Well, also, I think one of the things that's really interesting about the history that we're talking about, this is a kind of spiritual movement that was exported from India, but not under arms. This was exported on a spiritual basis. And this is what makes India unique in probably all the nations of the world. They're willing to defend themselves, but they're not willing to go and invade another country. That's not part of their history. And but it is something that I think you brought this to light by talking about this, right? This wasn't an Indian Navy that went to Indonesia and imposed a temple to be built there. This was people who were inspired by the Indian ethos and the Indian spirituality to build it on their own thousands of miles away from India. So it's a beautiful thing.
And, you know, that's a great point that you bring up too, Jack. You know, actually, there's people. It's not even like we were. You know, India's imperial in its ways, whether it be through the its religiosity or its economic desires. But there are people from all over the world for thousands of years who've come to India seeking out spirituality, education. Spice trade. America was discovered, according to our history, because Columbus was looking for spices for a spice trade from India or something like that, right? At least that's how the meme goes, right? So but Dave, maybe you could tell us about that as well. I know some of the world's oldest universities were in India, right? That people would come all over the world for thousands of years to come and study at. Is that not correct?
Absolutely, Vish, you're spot on. About Columbus discovered America and trying to seek a sea route to India from Europe, and India. I want to remind listeners, for 1,500 of the last 2,000 years was the world's biggest economy. It had the biggest GDP. So we opened the show up with economic nationalism, and so the Indian spirit is first meet the needs of your own people, and then you're in a position to meet the needs of others, friends and allies around the world. So whether we say America first or India first, it's not like it's America at the exclusion of all else or India at the exclusion of third parties. It's like once we take care of our families, our neighbors, our communities, our fellow citizens, we are very well positioned to take care the needs of allies around the world. And let me, finally conclude by saying, you mentioned this spice route, and Jack made the point of India never invaded other countries, just through trade and commerce and discussion and dialogue where all these ideas propagated. And even till this day, ideas like yoga, Ayurveda, meditation, which have long history of thousands of years in India, are now being rediscovered and re-exported around the world for the benefit of humanity.
Also, I want to make a point to show the listeners just how dangerous this left-wing mob is that seems to be in the streets all around the world, including in India. One of the things of the 20th century that India did, which was so beautiful, they introduced this concept of nonviolent protest. This was done by Mahatma Gandhi, a great hero around the world. And to give you an idea of the danger of this left-wing mob, they actually went and tried to destroy a statue of Mahatma Gandhi here in Washington, D.C.
In London.
And so these leftists are against fundamental values of human rights and spirituality and all the things that the Indian people stand for.
And they're against economic nationalism, which is what Gandhi stood for.
Of course. And he stood for this in a time when today we talk about Indian economic nationalism, it's a bad word. When Mahatma Gandhi did it, it was a spiritual concept that everybody could embrace and understand. And I want the Indian people today on your Independence Day to reflect upon that. Think about the importance of Gandhi's message, because it's really just been reinvented again by Modi. And I want the Americans to think of Gandhi's message and do the same thing so that we can be partners going forward in this future where we're going to liberate the world and let freedom ring. Dave, you have anything to add to that, my friend? You always have a good witticism.
No, Jack, those are great points. And I want to kind of summarize what you said by going back to trying to cancel Gandhi. They're trying to, in America, the leftists have tried to cancel Abraham Lincoln, who stood for freedom, who fought against slavery.
They're trying to cancel Frederick Douglass.
Yes.
So you have these leftist radicals who have this bogus view of history, who are currently siding with the Chinese Communist Party, siding with tyrants against free people and liberty.
Okay, people, we are going to go out for a break, but we're coming back. We're celebrating Indian independence, the alliance of liberty, and the great friendship between our countries.
War Room with Stephen K. Bannon. Here's your host, Stephen K. Bannon.
I admire him for something more. A sense of leadership, a passion for America, a concern for every American, a belief in American future, and a strong resolve to make America great again.
Welcome back to the War Room here. I'm sitting here with Jay Kansar, Dave Ramaswamy, Vish Bura, our producer here, along with Jack. What great words there from Prime Minister Modi. Guys, Jay, I know you had something you wanted to say about that right off the bat.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the crowning achievements of my life, I can say, is to be able to participate in that program. And Joe Wilson was actually present there, and he was also announced as a great friend to India. And I want to introduce the great congressman from South Carolina, Joe Wilson, who is also the founder of the U.S.-India House Caucus. So, Congressman Wilson, please.
And Jay and Stephen, it's an honor to be with you. I actually inherited an appreciation of the people of India. My dad served in the Flying Tigers in World War II, and one of my most favorite pictures is a First Lieutenant Hugh Wilson standing in front of the Taj Mahal in 1944. And as I was growing up, my dad told me how hardworking the people of India are. So when Indian Americans started buying hotels and motels across South Carolina as a real estate attorney, I became their attorney, and they proceeded to purchase a majority of the hotels and motels across our state, providing hundreds of thousands of entry-level jobs.
And that's great, Congressman. And right now we have an economy that's kind of that's rebounding, but the hospitality industry has absolutely taken a hit. What are some of the measures that you are ensuring can pass, with whatever limited time Congress has to support the Indian American business owners in your state?
Well, I want to support the president, and I was really, it was promises made, promises kept, and indeed, Jay, to be there with you with Howdy Modi in Houston. There were 50,000 people there. It was the largest welcome program in the history of the United States for a foreign head of state being the prime minister, with President Trump being president. And also there was another feature. It was the largest assemblage of millionaires in the history of the world. And so I'm just confident with the payroll tax deductions and elimination of the president's promises and pledges and success that we saw. He will recover the economy, and we know the other side, by increasing taxes, will devastate the economy.
And what can you talk about your U.S.-India Enhanced Cooperation Act and why that's the need of the hour to elevate India to a non-NATO ally status finally after years of Cold War paradigms that have finally been broken and shifted away?
Well, Jay, I actually lived the most extraordinary part of the getting away from the Cold War. A year ago today, I was at the Red Fort in New Delhi as the Prime Minister gave his Independence Day speech, and the American delegation, and I was in seat 1, was where the Soviet delegation used to sit. Now the Russian delegation sits a few rows back. But what we have is an opportunity to work with India as never before, and I've got legislation which would provide for enhanced cooperation. It's the U.S.-India Enhanced Cooperation Act, and it would indeed raise the status of India to be a major defense partner, very similar to Australia, Japan, Korea, our greatest allies. And then, and the president, again, promises made, promises kept. he renamed PACOM Command to Indo-PACOM Command. The people of India knows what that means. That means that they are important. Sadly, they also know the consequence of Chinese aggression. Only recently have they lost personnel, and they've been standing with us in regard to the South China Sea over and over again. I believe this legislation will be very, very important as the oldest democracy, the United States, works with the world's largest democracy, India.
And Congressman, what message do you have to the Indian people today on their Independence Day?
Well, happy Independence Day, and I just see a bright future. And of course, all the world has been globally affected by the Wuhan virus. And so not just India, but it has been catastrophic to India as it has been so crippling to the United States. But the good news is that I'm really confident that working together with India, a vaccine will be developed. Vice President Pence has been leading that effort, working with Prime Minister Modi, and we know that India has a very advanced pharmaceutical industry.
Thank you so much, Congressman, for your time today. Happy India Independence Day, and we look forward to having you again soon.
Well, my honor. Again, I appreciate the people of India so much, and, hey, the contributions of the Indian American community. Former Governor Bobby Jindal of Louisiana, the first Indian American governor, and, of course, South Carolina is very proud of Nikki Rondalla Haley, the first female governor of 340 years, the second Indian American, and so we know firsthand what the Indian American community can mean.
Thank you.
Okay, guys, listen, this brings to an end our fantastic 2-hour show. I want to say something to the Indian people personally. Namaste, and also because I care about your health, Chiri Kumkuro.